My sister-in-law uninvited my wife from the baby shower after a little joke. My brother wanted me to go anyway, but I refused to go without my wife. My name is Jim, I'm 30 years old, and I recently married the love of my life. My wife is 28 years old. I am super close with my brother, who is 35 years old. We always imagined our families would be close too, until one lunch ruined everything. My wife and I went out to eat with my brother and my sister-in-law, who is 31 years old, pregnant, and about to give birth to my first nephew. We were all very excited. Halfway through lunch, my brother, probably feeling sentimental, said, "Let's go, man. I hope the baby looks like Jim. He was such a cute little boy." Now, a little about my sister-in-law. She is usually nice, and I like her, but she is definitely the controlling type and a little demanding. Without missing a beat, she cut my brother off. "No, I much prefer him to look like you." It was a bit of a weird comment, and my brother probably felt the same, so he responded, "No, seriously, it would be lucky if the baby looked like Jim. He was such a cute little boy, nice and cute." Then my sister-in-law insisted, "No, but you are much better looking," before turning directly to me and adding, "No offense." Hey, I was offended. My brother is a very handsome guy, so I understand, but who says something like that out loud? My wife, who until then had been quiet, clearly found it rude. So she joked, "Well, as long as the baby doesn't look like her," referring to my sister-in-law. I laughed. My brother laughed. But my sister-in-law didn't. She immediately became furious, gave my wife a dirty look, and said, "What the hell does that mean? That is extremely rude. We are not close enough for jokes like that." My wife was shocked, and so was I. My brother tried to say something, but she stormed off, slamming the door. My brother went after her, looking as confused as I felt. Fast forward to today. My sister-in-law has officially disinvited my wife from her baby shower. My wife said she doesn't even want to go, which is fair enough. My brother is devastated and really wants me to be there. Now here's the problem. My brother adores me. He has always been my biggest supporter and wants me to be a big part of my nephew's life. He is having his first child, and this moment is very important to him. I also love my brother, and I can't stand seeing him so sad. He says that both my wife and my sister-in-law need to apologize eventually, but that we shouldn't force it now and should give them some time to cool down. He also thinks that my sister-in-law owes me an apology for what she said, but again, because of the pregnancy or something, he doesn't want to push it for now. My parents actually sided with my wife. They think my sister-in-law was rude at first, but they also believe that I shouldn't miss such an important moment in my brother's life and that we should cut my sister-in-law some slack because of the pregnancy. Here's my dilemma. I don't feel right about going if my wife isn't welcome. I want to support her, but I also know that this moment means the world to my brother. If I go, my wife might feel abandoned. If I don't go, my brother will be devastated. I'm completely torn. I'm back with an update after 6 days. But first, some clarification. 1. My wife is not a bad person. She made a joke at the time, although I admit it wasn't a great joke given the sensitivity of the situation, but she is genuinely one of the kindest and most caring people I know. It's one of the reasons I love her so much. 2. I don't think my brother did anything wrong by bringing it up at that lunch. We were reminiscing about childhood, and he was probably nostalgic about having his little brother follow him around everywhere. My brother and I look a lot alike, although he's definitely the cuter one. Funny how that works. And just to be clear, that doesn't mean I'm insecure. He's the exception, one of those people who just naturally gets attention. Even when we were younger, he would get hit on by random girls wherever he went. It was a running joke in our family, and even my parents would make fun of him for it. 3. The whole conversation lasted less than 5 minutes and escalated very quickly. I agree with the comments that we all could have handled the situation better, but it's easier to say that in retrospect. In the heat of the moment, things just got out of hand. I'm sure we all regretted what we said at the time. Now, the update itself. I told my wife I wasn't going unless she was invited too. She immediately said she didn't want to be the reason why I would miss the event and that I should go if I wanted to. She even said she would be willing to apologize if my sister-in-law was open to it. but that she wouldn't go, even if she was invited. I told her I appreciated that. But for me, it was either both of us or neither of us. So I called my brother, and this is where I have to give him a lot of credit, because I know he was upset. He really wanted me to be there, and I could hear the disappointment in his voice. But instead of pushing, he simply said, "I get it, man. Don't worry about it." I know it wasn't easy for him to say that. He had to balance keeping things calm with his wife while also wanting his brother by his side. But he didn't make me feel guilty. He didn't try to convince me otherwise. He just let me make my choice. He even said, "Don't worry, we'll save you some food, and I'll bring it later." I offered to help with the organization if he needed it and told him to say I had that bug to avoid any awkward questions. He laughed and said, "I get it, you got that bug." It only lasted long enough for the baby shower, but miraculously recovered the next day. Now, this is where things got a little more complicated. My mom wasn't happy with him for not sorting it out sooner. She felt he should have stepped in and made amends before it got to the point where my wife was disinvited. But my parents didn't say anything directly because they didn't want to get involved in the drama. I think it really weighed on him. He was already trying to deal with a difficult situation, and now he had our parents silently judging him too. This put him in an impossible position, trying to be a good husband, a good brother, and a good son all at the same time. A few days went by with no more drama. Then something unexpected happened. My wife got a call from my sister-in-law. At first, my wife panicked, thinking she was going to get scolded, but instead, they had a really nice conversation. I heard bits and pieces, including my wife saying, "No, you're beautiful," which made me laugh a little. After the call, my wife told me that my sister-in-law actually apologized first. She admitted that she was feeling really insecure about her appearance during her pregnancy and that my wife's joke had touched a raw nerve. A little later, my brother called me. He told me that he had spoken kindly to his wife and helped her see that things had gotten out of hand. He also told me that knowing my wife was willing to apologize made a big difference. And then he admitted something. He had wanted to fix things before the baby shower, but he knew his wife was already under a lot of pressure. He didn't want to add more stress to her while she was in the middle of the preparations. And honestly, I respect that. My sister-in-law is one of those people who needs everything to be perfect. Her appearance, my brother's house, decorations, etc. So I understand the pressure she must have put on herself. And my brother knew that putting pressure on her while she was stressed wouldn't help, so he waited. And after the event, when things had calmed down, he quietly stepped in and sorted things out. So, as things stand now, it seems like everything is fine on the surface. My wife and my sister-in-law have made up, and my brother and I are fine. My wife and I have decided to be more sensitive to my sister-in-law, considering what she is going through. Overall, the situation seems to have brought us a little closer. The big lesson in all of this? I have an amazing wife, but her sense of humor could use some work. Also, my brother. It's also not bad talking about him. My brother will probably never see this because he only uses Reddit for sports and news, or so he says. But in the unlikely event that he does see this, well, I think I've been found out, bro. I'll just admit something. This time, you are the best brother I could have asked for. That time you helped me in college, I don't think you have any idea how much that meant to me. And when I was going through a really hard time, you stood by me. I don't think I ever said it, but I always appreciated it. Of course, I will never admit this personally, and I will forever deny that I wrote this. When I met my husband 10 years ago, he had been divorced for 2 years from his ex, who we'll call Lucia. She just wanted to enjoy life. She was always absent from the kids, always partying, and completely irresponsible. We have had custody of the kids for years, and Lucia practically disappeared. Until, out of nowhere, she reappeared. She sent a message to my husband saying that she was changing her life, that she was now focused on the future and trying to get herself together. She also said that she was going to move abroad because she got a job and wanted to start a new life. So far, so good. But then, a few weeks later, I got home from work and came face to face with Lucia in my living room, drinking wine as if she were in her own home. My husband pulled me aside and let me know Lucia would be staying in the guest room for about 3 weeks. According to him, her rental contract had expired, and she needed a temporary place until she traveled. He didn't even consult me beforehand. I was irritated, but I let it go because I believed it would be temporary. 3 months later, Lucia's trip never happened. In fact, I think this job never existed. And the worst part is that I feel like a stranger in my own home. My husband works from home, so he spends the whole day with her. When I get home, the two of them are together in the kitchen, laughing, having dinner, exchanging old jokes as if they were a happy family. Lucia even washes my husband's clothes and says, "You already have so much to do. Let me take care of it." But I don't want her to take care of it. My stepdaughter has always had a picture of her mother in her room, which I never cared about, but now that picture is in the living room. But the last straw was the day I got home from work and found Lucia organizing my closet. She said it was a mess and that she would fix it. I got goosebumps just imagining her going through my things. I tried to talk to my husband, but he laughed and said, "How cute, are you jealous?" On top of that, he refused to ask Lucia to leave. He said he couldn't put the mother of his children out on the street and that he wouldn't spend money on a hotel for her. The situation was getting more and more absurd. One day, Lucia called a truck to take my furniture to the recycling depot while I was at work. When I got back, the living room and dining table were different. But the worst was yet to come. My husband and Lucia decided to spend a weekend together with the children as a family. And I wasn't included. It was at that moment that I had a moment of shock. I was letting this woman steal my life. And my husband was letting this happen. Enough of this lack of respect. I organized my finances, counted on the support of friends, and simply left. I filed for divorce and started my new life. A few months later, my ex called me to talk about the divorce papers and told me that Lucia had left with an old friend who showed up in town. He says the two of them have a deep spiritual connection and are planning to open a bead shop. Yes, beads. Now my ex is begging me to come back. He says it was a mistake, that he wants to make things right, and that the kids miss me. But you know what? I prefer to keep my dignity and live my life alone. My boyfriend and I were planning a vacation together, until he decided to travel alone to his parents' house and left me home alone. My boyfriend is entitled to 3 weeks of vacation per year. He already used 1 week in the summer. The second week was reserved for a ski trip with his family. And the third week, well, that would be our trip. At least, that's what I thought. For months, he talked about planning something special just for the two of us. We discussed a few places, but he said he would take care of everything as a pseudo-surprise to make up for the fact that he forgot my birthday. So far, so good. But then his parents, whom I don't get along with, asked him to come home for a few days. He assured me that he would still divide the week between a trip with me and some time with them. But suddenly, he announced that the most convenient dates for his parents would be from Sunday to Saturday. That is, the whole week. Without even discussing it with me, he simply bought the tickets. He tried to convince me that we would still have 2 days together, the Saturday before his flight and the Sunday after. But let's face it, this was not even remotely what I expected. And now, instead of traveling with my boyfriend, I was alone in our apartment, trying to understand how this had happened. I was devastated. I didn't know if I was exaggerating or if I really had a reason to feel that way. He even suggested a long weekend together to make up for it. But seriously, this seemed like just a consolation prize. And that's where the dilemma comes in. My boyfriend has always been a nice, kind, and super attentive guy. Our relationship has always been based on respect and communication. It was so good that sometimes it seemed surreal. But at the same time, there were moments that left me devastated, as if I wasn't a priority at all. I started to wonder if these were warning signs. 3 days after he left, I tried to talk to him again. I explained how much that had hurt me, and he suggested coming back in the middle of the week so we could take a short trip to the destination of my choice. I was even excited. He gave me some options, and when he suggested watching my team play at the stadium, I thought that at least something good would come out of this mess. But then he simply didn't buy the tickets or book the return flight. When I asked him about it, he changed the subject and said he would only be back on the weekend as agreed. And I didn't understand anything. That's when he told me about the conversations he had with his parents about me. On his birthday, I made a scrapbook and asked his sister for childhood photos as a special gift. But his mother interpreted this as an attempt to infiltrate the family and steal personal information. Yes, you read that right. I just laughed so I wouldn't cry. And the worst was yet to come. I found out that his family hates me. And he told me why. I'm not of the same religion as them, and I don't follow the same political party. For them, that was enough to treat me like an intruder. Now, you'd think at least my boyfriend would see how absurd this is and stand by my side, right? Wrong. He actually had the courage to ask me if, in the long run, it would be fair to him if I made him choose between spending the holidays with his family or with me. And that's when it hit me. I would never be a priority in his life. If he couldn't defend me now, he never would. So I looked at him and said, "Look for me when you grow up and become your own person." And that's how I got rid of my boyfriend. And those were today's stories. What would you do if you were in their place? Tell me in the comments. I really want to know your opinion. If you liked hearing these stories and want to hear more, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive notifications of new videos. Because here I tell you, and you believe it if you want.